My father divorced his first wife after she had a baby that was not his. He had 5 legitimate kids with her but did not fight for custody. A few years later, he met my mom, had me, and we had a happy life for 53 years. I may have seen my half-siblings less than a dozen times in my whole life, mostly when I was much younger. My dad tried to help them out over the years, giving advice and lending them money when they needed it. We never lived in the same state, but I would hear of them from time to time, always through my father's disappointment in them. He also felt some guilt for not being there for them. Eventually, they broke his trust one too many times, and he decided to never help them out financially again. They would occasionally call or send a birthday card, but they all eventually stopped calling. About a year ago, my mother passed away suddenly, and then my father pretty much lost the will to live and passed away about 9 months later. Being the only child, it was a huge emotional burden for me, not to mention a logistical nightmare, but I loved them and I was happy to be able to be there for them. My half-sister came out of the woodwork and began visiting my dad at his assisted living facility, and I was appreciative of any help, even if it was a couple of weeks here and there. Aside from her, no one else came to visit. After he passed, I learned through his will that I was the sole inheritor of his humble estate. It was actually supposed to go to my mom, and then to me if she was no longer living, but since she had already passed, it all went to me. His other children were not mentioned in the will. About 2 months later, as I was trying to deal with probate, I got a call from one of the siblings saying they were going to challenge the will in court and sue me if they didn't get their fair share. They claimed that my dad had promised them things over the years. I told them that while I knew it hurt not to be mentioned in the will, there was nothing I could do about it. I didn't write the will. One of them even suggested that I influenced him while he had dementia. I tried to be understanding, knowing that they lost their father too, but this went on for months. At one point, just to push things along, I said that I would think about sending them some things, but I needed to get through probate first. They finally relented once they realized they had no case. I am finally through probate, but they've left such a bad taste in my mouth that I don't want to give them anything. I'd rather just donate the items they wanted. They don't even want the items because they mean anything to them. It's things they think they can sell for money. So,
Comment 1, NTA. Your father's will should be executed as he wished. However, I have immense empathy for the children he withheld affection from and punished for his first wife's affair. They grew up knowing they had a father who didn't fight to be a part of their lives, who viewed them as disappointments, and who preferred his new family. None of that is your fault, of course, those were his actions. But his actions and attitude toward his 5 older children is certainly hurtful to them. Comment 2. I don't think you're an asshole, but your dad definitely was. He straight up abandoned 5 children to start a new family. Sure, they didn't want anything to do with him as adults. That's fair. He wrote them off when they were just kids and they needed him. He owed them so much more than he gave them. The least he could have done was leave them an inheritance. It won't make up for being a deadbeat dad, but at least it would be something. You're not the one who owes them anything, but your dad absolutely did. It's fair if you want certain things for yourself, but if they want certain things and you're just going to get rid of them anyway, why wouldn't you just give them to them? It doesn't hurt you at all. It would be petty to deny them that when it doesn't affect you at all. Comment 3. NTA. But honestly, I think you're better off just sending them the items they want and leaving it all behind you. His over-tightening jar lids has been an issue since he was just visiting at my house when we were dating. First it started with just things he used and then over time it became every damn glass jar with a metal lid. He'd tighten them so much I couldn't open them without assistance. It wasn't a huge deal if he was there, but if I was alone, it was so annoying. More times than I can count, I've opened a new jar of something because I couldn't get the jar open. It's been a recurring cycle over the past 5 years. It's just a thing that would escalate until I had a major meltdown and freaked out, screaming, frustrated and seemingly crazy because it's just a lid. Then it would get better for a while, then it would slowly become an issue again. Just getting worse and worse until I reach a breaking point again. Sometimes I literally feel insane for being so upset over jar lids. He initially claimed that he did it to keep food fresh. After many arguments about it, and my insistence that I don't believe it keeps anything fresh, and even if it does make things last longer, I don't care if it means I can't eat my freaking food when I want. I'll just replace things that go bad because they are closed normally. Then the excuse was that it's a habit. So about a month ago my husband had a family emergency and had to travel out of state for 10 days. First day he's gone, I discover a jar I can't open. I was annoyed and was going to the store to buy new pickles when the neighbor said hi and to let him know if I needed anything while Specs is out of town. I said wait here and got the jar, which he opened. The next day I saw him outside and asked him to open another jar. He offered to come open all the jars. I agreed and he came in and he went to the fridge and opened all the jars except 2, which he couldn't get open. I thanked him profusely and told him I'd baked some of his favorite cookies later in the week. He laughed and said it was no big deal, and after confirming that I wouldn't be upset if the remaining 2 jars were destroyed in his attempt to open them, he took them home to his garage to open them one way or another. He said that he's heard me screaming about over-tightened jar lids a few times over the years, and he's really pondered if I was crazy or if my husband was really over-tightening the jar lids. He said this was intentional. It was every jar, and I'm sure he doesn't regularly use hot pepper paste or mango puree or any of your other fancy cooking stuff. Then he held up the 2 jars he couldn't open and said, I don't know why he's doing it, but it wasn't an accident. After he left, I locked the door and sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Then I felt hot and lightheaded. I vomited in the trash can. My chest hurt. It crossed my mind that I might be having a heart attack. I thought about calling an ambulance but sat back down on my kitchen floor instead, okay with just dying if it was a heart attack. Later the neighbor came back with the open jar of hot fudge and apologized that he couldn't save the figs. He said he broke the jar trying to get it open. He also apologized for what he said about my husband doing it on purpose. I assured him it was okay. I couldn't sleep that night. Tossed and turned all night. I called out of work. By 10 a.m., I realized that I couldn't stay married anymore and I made an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. There are literally no other issues, no cheating, no abuse, we had a good sex life, both have good jobs, nice house, no financial issues. He was absolutely blindsided when he came home and I told him I wanted a divorce. He still won't admit that he tightened the lids on purpose. He suggested we go to marriage counseling, but I refused. There is no point. I just literally can't get past the goddamned jar lids. I still feel a little bit crazy about that. I have no idea why he would tighten every jar lid so tightly that I couldn't open it. He has given me no reason. He still won't even admit that he did it on purpose. But the hot pepper paste is in the back of the fridge. I use it only when I make Indian food. It's behind other things. He's never used it. It's nothing you could put in food without cooking it. The pepper paste could not have been an accident. It couldn't. Maybe he put mango puree on his toast or in his oatmeal, but the pepper paste couldn't have been an accident. That's what my life comes down to. I'm getting a divorce because the lid to my hot pepper paste was over tie. If it had been every jar except that one, I could try. I could have a sliver of doubt. I could do something else, but I just can't get past the hot pepper paste. Most of our friends and families either think I'm crazy or an R. What do you think? Comment 1. My ex told me he just didn't hear our 2 babies when they woke at night. Too tired, just didn't hear them. I believed him. When the younger kid was 3, the ex told me he'd lied. Smiled about it. I knew you'd get up. Of course I heard every time. Divorced him 6 months later. Like you, it's stuck in my craw. Comment 2. NTA. Your husband has spent 5 years deliberately making your life harder in tiny ways and then lying to your face to make you think you are crazy. Comment 3. NTA. Your husband is playing a game with you, making you frustrated, helpless and dependent on him. And he's doing it deliberately, as the hot sauce proves. That is not just a matter of jars, it's a matter of his behavior and attitude towards you. I'd dump him. My boyfriend, 30M, and I, 25F, have been together for 3+ years, living together for 2. He has a 13-year-old son, had him when he was very young. He is at our house Friday night, Monday morning. Since we've moved in together, there has been an ongoing issue that my things end up in his son's room, especially if he's cleaning or moving stuff around. Last week, I came home from work and realized my PS5 was missing the HDMI cord. Son's room. Disconnected and on the floor. Because son was using it earlier and just unplugged it instead of putting it back. Which, he's 13 and in his own world. My boyfriend let him borrow it, so he should have put it back when son was done. Side note, I bought his son a couple of cords so my BF would stop taking mine for him to use. No idea what happened to them. The other day, I was looking for my dog's combing supplies. She has her own cabinet of dog stuff. They somehow ended up in his son's room. He said he was reorganizing the cabinet and took some things out, and he must have moved the comb in the process. Today, my boyfriend was taking a nap and I was going to go to the gym. I could not find my headphones. They are usually in my gym bag, but I had taken them out to charge earlier today. I looked in his son's room but did not see them, so I looked elsewhere but could not find them. When my boyfriend woke up, I asked him where my headphones were. He went into his son's room and said he put them in his closet on accident, while cleaning around the house. His headphones were also in the closet. I honestly lost it. I told him I am so tired of having to question where my things are at. Our house is not cluttered. It is hardly messy. There is no reason for my things not to be in our room. There is no reason for my things to be in someone else's room. I told him that if I have something in one spot, he does not need to move it. My headphones being on the charger is not inconveniencing anyone. He said I am overreacting and it's harmless to just go into his son's room and look for something if I need to. He said that he accidentally, subconsciously moves things and doesn't realize they are mine. I called bullshit, because this has been an issue for 2 years. I told him I am just not going to leave anything that is mine around the house anymore, not even a pair of shoes at the front door. I also do not like having to look in other people's rooms or playing hide and seek with my things. I would hate for someone to look through my things/room. If he wants to put his stuff in his son's room, by all means, do it. Which he does sometimes. But I told him to stop putting my stuff in there. I feel like an asshole just typing this. We have a great relationship and hardly argue. However, I have asked him in the past to please not do this, and he isn't getting it. Am I overreacting? Comment 1. NTA Your boyfriend has absolutely no reason to move your things. Growing up, my mother was a constant tidier and decided to move other people's things. It was a constant battle until she threw away research my brother was gathering for a paper, and then all hell broke loose. To this day, the number of things she moves and forgets where she put them is hilarious. When she can't find something, we tell her maybe you should have left it where it's always been, keep looking. Comment 2. Know what he's trying to do is dehumanize you by stripping away your identity. See if everything that is associated with you becomes either common shared items and or becomes his son's property, then you are nothing without him. This is one of the oldest manipulative tactics that's been out there. He's doing it on purpose. He's doing it to get a rise out of you. He's doing it to gaslight you, and then he's going to say you're irrational and blah blah blah. This is a power trip. He's trying to put you in your place. This is already so freaking toxic, it's frightening. My mom lost custody of me 3 years ago. She's always had issues and she's been in jail a few times. I, 15M, have no dad in my life, so I'd go to my aunt typically until my mom got out and took me back. But then she lost custody of me for real and my aunt took me in. My aunt was going through her own really difficult time. My uncle, her husband, died, and she was left alone with her son, 10. A few months later, she met a guy called James and they hit it off and ended up moving in together and getting married by the end of that same year. They met in February. James has a daughter, 11. James's ex had divorced him a few years before and wasn't around their daughter. She didn't remember her mom and was feeling mixed about the blended family. Sometimes she really wanted a mom, and other times she didn't want to have a new mom or share her dad with my cousin. The two kids could not get along and living with them was miserable. My cousin misses his dad so much and he's angry that his mom married again so fast. He was mad that James's daughter was sometimes calling his mom and other times telling her she's not her mom and to go away. He was angry James was trying to do stuff for him that his dad used to do, take him hiking, Father's Day events and stuff. It was such a mess and I was miserable being in the middle of all that. They were in therapy and everyone came back from that so unhappy. In the end, I was talking to my social worker and I asked if I could live with my grandma instead. Grandma said yes. She was so happy. I moved in with her last week. But my aunt was so hurt I did that and my cousin misses me. He asked if he could live with me and grandma too. He told grandma he doesn't want to live with James or Katie, James's daughter, anymore and he'd be way happier with her and me. My aunt was even more devastated by this. She told my cousin he still had her and he told her he didn't want James or Katie and he couldn't have her without them. They ended up talking and he told her he wished James and Katie would go away forever and never come back. I think some of my aunt's anger came from that and was directed at me over my cousin. But it made her get super pissed that I had asked to leave. She said she was always there for me and why did I want so badly to leave and stuff. Comment 1, NTA. It is normal to want stability in your life after everything you had been through. Your aunt may be hurt but she should try to see this choice from your point of view and if she cannot, that is even more reason to stay with your grandma. Comment 2. NTA. You have a lot going on and it's totally okay to want to escape the chaos. At 15, recognizing what you need and asking for it is pretty mature. Good for you. Tell your aunt how much you appreciate all she's done for you. But that with all the stress everyone is under trying to blend the family, you felt it would be better for all involved, including yourself, to remove yourself from the situation. Your cousin is kinda being an but it sounds like he's even younger than you, at an age where being the kind of he's being is pretty normal.